She was standing by the drinks table on purpose. Not because she was thirsty. Because the drinks table at events like this one occupied a specific social geography, peripheral enough to avoid the density of the main floor, central enough to look deliberate rather than avoidant, and equipped with something to hold, which solved the problem of hands. G1 had developed this strategy at approximately age 16 at her first formal event, and had refined it across 14 years of exactly these kinds of evenings. The glass was a prop. The position was a choice. She was fine. The charity gala at the Shilla Hotel was the fourth event she had attended this month, which was 3 more than she would have chosen, and exactly as many as her position required. She ran the strategy division of KH Capital, a role she had earned through 6 years of work that had begun before she was formally employed there, and which she performed. By any measurable standard. Well, the role required visibility. Visibility required events. Events required standing somewhere with something in her hand, looking like a person who had chosen to be here. She was fine. She was also aware, in the peripheral way she was aware of most things, of the group of men near the far pillar who had been conducting a conversation that involved periodic glances in the direction of the drinks table. She had noted this 12 minutes ago and had categorized it without giving it full attention, the way she categorized most social data: filed, available for retrieval, not requiring immediate action. She was revising that assessment. The man who separated from the group moved with the specific looseness of someone who had been given a task and was executing it with the confidence of someone who had not fully thought through the other half of the transaction. He was good-looking in the way of men who had grown up knowing they were good-looking, which was a kind of good-looking she had encountered often enough to have formed a complete and ungenerous opinion of. He arrived at the drinks table with the easy arrival of someone who went everywhere easily, picked up a glass, and turned to her with a smile that had been used successfully before and knew it. "I don't think we've met," he said. She looked at him. He was 29 or 30, she estimated. Good suit, slightly more confident in it than the suit warranted. He smelled of something expensive. He was looking at her with the performed attention of someone completing an assignment. "We haven't," she said. "Han Sung-min," he said. "Park Ji-won," she said. He extended his glass in the approximate gesture of a toast. She touched hers to it with the minimal movement required for social adequacy. "Are you here with someone?" he said. "No, neither am I," he said, with the particular warmth of a man delivering news he expected to be received as good. G1 looked at him and then, briefly, at the group by the far pillar, who were watching with the inadequately concealed attention of people observing an experiment in progress. She looked back at Sung-min. She had a complete picture of the situation. She had had it for approximately 45 seconds, and the question was simply what she wanted to do with it. "Your friends," she said. He blinked. "Sorry?" "The group by the pillar," she said. "They're watching." She looked at him with the level, undecorated attention she used in boardrooms when someone had presented a position she was about to dismantle. What was the dare? The word dare hit him visibly. Something moved across his face, surprise first, then the reorganization that followed surprise in people who were not entirely without self-awareness. He looked at his glass. He looked at the pillar. Briefly, he looked back at her. "Dance with the..." He stopped. "With the what?" she said. Her voice was the voice she used for accurate things delivered without cruelty, which was a combination she had spent years developing, because the accuracy was non-negotiable and the cruelty was a choice. He closed his mouth. Whatever word had been at the end of that sentence remained there. Something was happening in his expression that was more complex than she had initially allocated him the capacity for. something that looked, with reasonable certainty, like discomfort of the genuine variety rather than the performed kind. "I'm going to apologize," he said. "I know you are," she said. "I'm curious whether the apology is because you got caught or because you understand why it requires one." He was quiet for a moment. She waited with the patience of someone who had sat across from better prepared opponents than this, and had not been in a hurry then either. "The second one," he said. You think. I'm in the middle of figuring that out," he said. "In real time, in front of you. Which is..." He stopped again. "Not ideal." G1 looked at him. She looked at him properly, the way she looked at things when she was revising her initial assessment, not with the performed attention he had arrived with, but with the actual variety, the one that cost something. He was standing at the drinks table with his easy good looks and his expensive smell and his unfinished sentence about what the dare had been, and he was uncomfortable, and the discomfort appeared to be real. "Sung Min," she said. "Yes, what do you do?" He looked slightly off balance at the change of direction, which she had intended. "Venture capital," he said. "Early stage. Mostly tech." "Which firm?" he told her. She knew it. Mid-tier, 3 years old, had made 2 notable exits in the last 18 months, and was building a reasonable reputation in the consumer tech space. Not her sector, but adjacent. "Portfolio strategy," she said. "How do you handle concentration risk when your early-stage bets are clustering in the same category?" He stared at her for 2 full seconds. "I'm sorry?" "Concentration risk," she said. "If 3 of your top 5 bets are in, say, consumer health tech, and the regulatory environment shifts, you're exposed. How do you model for that at the portfolio level?" Sung Min looked at his glass, then at her, with the expression of a man who had arrived somewhere very different from where he had expected to go. "We use a..." He started, and then something shifted in him, the looseness settling into something more solid, the practiced social ease replaced by something that functioned better under pressure. "We use a modified scenario matrix. Stress test each position against 3 regulatory environments. It's not perfect, but it catches the obvious cluster problems before they become structural." "What counts as obvious?" she said. "More than 30% of committed capital in a single subsector," he said. "We set the threshold after," he paused, "after an expensive lesson about not setting it earlier." "How expensive?" He told her. It was a real number, delivered without the minimizing wrapper that people usually applied to professional failures in public. She noted this. "The lesson held," she said. "The lesson absolutely held," he said. "We haven't made that particular mistake again." He looked at her with an expression that was no longer performing anything. "Who are you?" "I told you. Park G1. "I know your name," he said. "That's not what I asked." She picked up her glass and looked at the room. The gala in full Friday night operation. 300 people performing the social mechanics of money and visibility, the music and the light, and the particular hum of an event that knew what it was. Her father was somewhere in this room. He was always somewhere in rooms like this, had been for her entire life, and she had spent her entire life navigating the specific geography of being his daughter, while being, also, entirely, herself, which was a navigation that required constant calibration. She had not told Sung Min her full name. Park Ji-won could be many things. Park Ji-won, daughter of Park Sung-il, chairman of KH Group, was a specific and different quantity, and she generally waited until she had sufficient data on a person before she introduced that quantity, because the introduction changed things in ways she had learned to be careful about. She had sufficient data on Sung Min to know he had arrived at the drinks table on a dare. She did not yet have sufficient data on what he was when the dare was no longer operative. "I'm in strategy," she said. "Capital allocation. Mostly mature assets." "Which firm?" She told him. The firm name, not the parent company. He nodded the way people nodded when they recognized something they hadn't expected to encounter here, in this corner, with this woman who had been standing at the drinks table holding a glass while his friends watched from the pillar. "You caught the dare," he said. "Most people wouldn't have." "I notice most things," she said. "It's a professional habit. Does it bother you?" The noticing. She considered this. It was a more interesting question than she had expected from him, which was the second revision she had made to her initial assessment in the last 12 minutes. "It used to," she said. "It's faster than not noticing." He was quiet for a moment. Outside the tall windows, Seoul was doing its Friday thing, lit and dense and indifferent in the way she had always found comforting. The city's enormous indifference, a kind of permission to be exactly what you were without requiring the city's approval. "I would actually like to dance with you," he said. "Not because of the dare. In spite of it. I understand if the answer is no." She looked at him, at the genuine discomfort that had replaced the social ease, the specific expression of someone who has done something they are not proud of and is not pretending otherwise. She thought about the dare and the word he hadn't finished, and the pillar full of watching friends. She thought about the scenario matrix and the expensive lesson and the number delivered without the minimizing wrapper. "One dance," she said. They danced. He was better at it than she had expected, which was a third revision, and she was running out of room for them. He did not try to recapture the easy charm he had arrived with. He was just present, paying attention, moving through the music with the same quality of focus he had applied to the conversation about concentration risk. She found it preferable to the charm. When the song ended, they stepped back from each other, with the small, slight adjustment of people returning from something to normal distance, and she became aware, at the edge of her vision, of a man crossing the room toward them with the particular directional certainty of someone who knew exactly where they were going. "G1." Her father touched her arm briefly in greeting, and then turned the warm, assessing attention he applied to all unfamiliar people to the man beside her. "I don't think I know your friend." Sung Min looked at her. She watched him process the address, G1, not the formal address of a colleague, the address of someone who had known her since she had no other name, and she watched him look at her father and work through the data. Park Song-il was 63 years old and had the appearance of a man who had been serious for a long time and had found a comfortable relationship with it. He was not imposing in the way of men who required space. He was imposing in the way of men who had built things, which was quieter and more durable. She watched Sung Min complete the calculation. "Han Sung Min," he said to her father. He said it without the performance of someone recovering from surprise, which she noted was harder to do than it looked. "I was just speaking with your daughter about concentration risk in early-stage portfolios." Her father looked at her. She kept her expression informative without being explanatory. "Were you?" her father said. "She has a more rigorous framework for it than we do," Sung Min said. "I'm going to bring it back to my team on Monday." Her father looked at him for a moment, with the long, patient assessment he applied to things he was deciding the value of. A look she had grown up watching across breakfast tables, and boardroom tables and tables exactly like this one. A look she had learned to read accurately at approximately age 14. "I'll leave you to it," her father said. He touched her arm again and moved away into the room with the easy navigation of a man who had been moving through rooms like this for 40 years. Sung Min looked at her. Part G1, he said. Not the introduction, the full accounting of it. Yes, she said. He was quiet for a moment. She watched him work through the layers, the dare, the drinks table, the dance, the conversation, and now this. And she watched him decide, with what appeared to be genuine deliberation, what he was going to do with all of it. I owe you an apology that is more specific than the one I offered earlier, he said. The dare was, he stopped. Tried again. The word I didn't finish was a word I should not have had in my mouth in the first place. I'm not going to ask you to forgive that, because I don't think I've earned the ask. I'm just going to say it plainly. I was wrong, and I knew it was wrong when I was doing it, and I did it anyway, because I thought the room was safe, and it wasn't. And more importantly, it was never the point whether the room was safe. She held his gaze for a moment. She thought about accurate apologies and the specific difference between them and the performed variety, and she thought that this was the accurate kind, not comfortable, not resolved, not asking her to provide him with the resolution. Just the statement, sitting there, requiring nothing from her. I know, she said. I'd like to start the conversation over, he said. The one that would have happened if I'd walked over here because I wanted to. You wouldn't have walked over, she said. You were with your friends. He absorbed this. Probably not, he said. Which means I would have missed the conversation about concentration risk, which means I would have gone back to my team on Monday with the same inadequate framework. He looked at her. That seems like the worst outcome. She looked at him. She thought about 14 years of drinks tables and held glasses and the peripheral awareness of rooms full of people performing their social calculations. She thought about the dare and the unfinished word and the expensive lesson delivered without the minimizing wrapper and the apology that had not asked her to provide the resolution. She thought, data is data. You work with what the data actually says, not the version of it you had before you had it. The concentration risk framework, she said. It has an application problem in early stage that I haven't fully solved. The scenario matrix works for mature assets because you have enough historical data to build the scenarios. With early stage, you're modeling on thinner information. He looked at her. The easy good looks were still there, but underneath them something had settled into something else, attention, actual and fully operational, the kind that cost something. How do you handle the thin information problem, he said. I build a different kind of scenario, she said. Not what historically happened, what structurally could. It's more conservative, but it catches things the historical model misses. Show me, he said. Then, if you're willing. She looked at the room, at the gala doing what galas did, at the pillar where the friends had been standing, empty now, the audience having dispersed when the experiment failed to produce its expected result. She looked back at him. There's a conference next month, she said. Early stage in growth capital. I'm presenting on Thursday morning. The framework will be in the presentation. I'll be there, he said. It starts at 8, she said. Thursday morning. I'll be there at 8, he said. She picked up her glass from the drinks table. She looked at him one more time with the full, undecorated quality of her attention, and what she saw was this: a man who had done something small and unkind and had been caught doing it and had chosen, when the choice was available to him, to be the second kind of person rather than the first. It was not a large thing. It was not nothing. Sung Min, she said. Yes, the word you didn't finish, she said. I finished it. I've been finishing it my whole life. She held his gaze with the even steadiness of someone who had never once needed a room's approval to know what she was worth. It has never once been accurate. He looked at her for a moment. Something in his face did something that was not the social smile. Not the charm, not the ease. Something quieter and less comfortable and more real. "No," he said. It wasn't. She set down her glass. She had a room full of people to speak with, and a conference presentation to finalize, and a Thursday morning at 8 that she had just made relevant to someone who had arrived at a drinks table on a dare. She straightened her shoulders. She walked back into the room. The drinks table was behind her. The room was in front of her. She moved through the center of it.